So this first defense that we're going to talk about is a red zone defense that I've used the last two places I've been. It's out of an even front. You could possibly use it in an odd front. I've never done that in an odd front. What you're going to want to do up front, though, is get your games moving. You want your defensive line to be able to take up the A and B gaps and make sure everything shoots outside as far as run game. And then obviously once it converts to pass, those guys got to be able to get in position to contain the passer. It's a zone concept with what we would call 2 under, 5 deep. And what it gives you is 7 pairs of eyes on the ball. And this defense and running this coverage helps teams out with, or helps you defensively as far as not being able to get fade balls thrown on you all the time in the red zone. And it also gets a bunch of guys looking at what's going on as far as what the offense is doing, and for you to basically try to force them to run perimeter run, and then you force it back in with your edge players. The D-line has to have the ability to retrace, obviously on screens and whatnot and movements. And then the biggest thing is you're looking to protect the end zone on this defensive call. So you can call it on first and second down if the team is maybe 50-50. But if it's 3rd and 1, you're not going to call this defense. You're going to call some sort of zero or whatnot, or whatever you want to run, whatever you think is best to stop a high percentage run down. This is kind of one of those downs where it's 50-50 or geared slightly more towards pass, and obviously more than pass. And so what you're doing here is your cornerbacks are guarding what we call the zone 1, or the outside zone, and that's going to be the numbers to the sideline and everything vertically behind them. We tell them they are they're carrying the vertical, the outside release of 1 to the flats. Their alignment is 7x1 outside of number 1. They're going to be in an open stance, so a zone stance, and they're ball keying. So they're looking inside for playing the perimeter run to the vertical outside 1. Your safeties, and it's a mirrored defense. They're doing the same thing on both sides. Your safeties are playing that zone 2 area. So they're playing 10 yards. Their toes are going to be at 10. They're going to apex, so split the difference between the 1 and the 2. Unless those guys get cut splits to each other, then they'll play either inside or outside, depending upon if the cut split is tight to the boundary, or tight to the sideline, or tight to the formation. They're in a closed stance and they're ball keying. They have the vertical inside release of number 1. So they're ball keying. They see run, obviously they fit outside in where needed. If it's pass, they're standing flat-footed and they're letting number 1 push vertical. And they're seeing where he releases. They're seeing if he releases inside of that guy, inside of that corner, which tells them that they now have to carry that guy anything vertical and over the top, or outside of that corner. If he releases outside the corner, then that tells them that they don't have to worry about him anymore, so their eyes can go back inside to see where the quarterback's cueing, and then they can start to get in a slow pedal. They want this number 2 on his vertical release to go behind him, though. So they can't be fast out of there when they see number 1 push vertical outside. They're still slow to make sure this number 2 carries inside of them and over the top if he's going to run a corner route. And that goes to both sides. For the nickel and the linebacker, or the outside linebacker on both sides, they have the same exact responsibility for the safety, but they have that zone 3 area. So they're looking to apex 2 in the end line of scrimmage. Now their alignment could change. Their generic alignment's 5 by apex. But as this guy gets tighter, tighter with a slot split alignment, then they want to scoot up closer, because, again, they want this guy to go behind them. So then now they're between the ball and him, and then they're able to start pushing vertical to cover that zone 3 area to make sure the ball's thrown over the top. And that'd be the same thing on both sides. So if this 2 is in line, now this linebacker's in the box, because again, he wants to make sure if this guy's going to push vertical, it'll go behind him, and he's going to push vertical like in a slow pedal with his eyes inside and trying to kind of fill him out like he's playing basketball and he's what's that called? Boxing him out for a rebound. At any point in time, if these guys on the outside go underneath now, which we call bound and determined, we say let them go. So if this guy goes right now underneath, that safety saying he's not going to come up and take him. He's going to let him go because that's telling him it's a shallow. So he does the same thing as if he were to release outside of him. He'd get in that slow pedal, cover that zone 2 area. Same thing here with the nickel. If that number 2 goes right now underneath, that's telling him he's bound and determined. So he's going to let him go, knowing that there's a good chance that somebody's coming back from this side. So he would get in that slow pedal, keying that quarterback to make sure he takes away that zone 3 area in case there's any routes that may go. For instance, this would be a long route, but back there, he's in that window to play the ball. And because there's so much space, we play this more like zone, whereas if it gets closer, we start playing it more like man. And then the toughest job is this linebacker here. So what we'll do is we'll move him back. He won't play the same depth as the nickel or the 2 outside linebackers here. He'll play back maybe 2-3 yards behind the depth of those guys. And he is an inside-out player on run. Remember, all A and B gaps are taken away. He's an inside-out player on run, and on pass, he's a post player. So he's defending between the uprights. That's what we asked him to do. So ball snapped, he's going to be slow pedaling out, keying the quarterback. If it's run, he starts coming downhill either way, depending upon where the run is. If it's pass, he's looking to – if the ball is thrown between these uprights, he's looking to pick the ball off. So here are some clips as far as what we do on the outside to practice for these guys in this coverage. So here's your corner here. Here's your safety here. Here is for 2 detached receivers. Both those guys are inside. So obviously this here we're working pass. Now once that corner has felt this receiver get even with him, he then starts giving ground, vertical ground to cover his zone 1. Because it's telling this safety here he has to eat up or marry this route as long as it's vertical and it's trying to get by him. If this route were to start vertical, for some reason break off at 5, he just lets it go. He continues to backpedal. We'll rally and tackle that because he has to then anticipate this number 2 running that corner route. And if he gets enough ground, he starts taking away the window for the throw of the quarterback, and also helps his corner out as far as once he starts giving ground and seeing the ball be thrown to help with that ball being a heightened throw for this guy to get underneath it, that corner to get underneath it. And in my opinion, the safety is probably a little too fast. So here we go again, same deal. Again, this safety, he needs to be a little bit more patient because that guy is 10 yards away from him. There's no way he's going to get behind him, and he's still 7 yards in front of him. This corner here is doing a good job, and it's an easy job for the corner. I mean, it gives him some relief as far as not being fade ball not being thrown on him. But as you can see here, this would be a linebacker's vertical threat, zone 3. So there would be a linebacker there underneath this route. There'd be your post player on top here, coming top down in that route if it was thrown. This safety here should be eaten up and marrying this route here, the outside route. And so he should really, in reality, be more focused on this throw here than that throw. Sometimes you run drills, you run half line. Kids don't see the big picture, but there should be like I said, a linebacker sitting here and there'd be a post player linebacker sitting right there for that throw inside. So again, he could slow down. It's good tempo here. His eyes are inside. He knows one's gone in, two's running a flat route. But these guys are keying the quarterback, so they're not going to drive to a route until the ball's thrown. There's only one ball. Only one guy can catch the ball. So that's who they're playing, is they're playing the ball here. So he's splitting and dividing those two guys, knowing that he has his zone one. If the ball's thrown to this number two, he's going to be able to come up and play underneath it. Who screw? And this is a tough one because that's one. So here's some game footage of it. Sorry. So here we have the corners on the outside, safety. There's that middle post player linebacker. There's your two overhang. So his two is in the box. So he's got to be inside of his two. His two is in the box. So he's going to be in the box here. There's this safety's one. This safety's one. So those two guys on the outside are looking to see if those receivers release inside or outside the corners. And those corners really got to make sure they're patient, because if he starts giving ground too soon, it screws up this guy as far as knowing if that receiver is going to go outside or inside of him. So this corner to the left actually does a pretty average job, because he starts giving ground way too soon. And so now this receiver can actually come back inside on him here. And at that time, as you can see, the safety, his eyes have gone inside because of what this corner did with gave ground. So he's like, well, if he's giving ground, that means that's an outside release, so he's going to take him. And so if he were to come back inside, that safety probably wouldn't know that guy'd be coming back in on the post. Corner up top is probably slightly more patient as far as where that number one is. But where he ends up, it's a good position here as far as being at the goal line, seeing where the ball is, being able to play that back corner and that throw there. And as far as the linebackers, we don't want his shoulders to be turned. Obviously, he needs to be able to see where the ball's being thrown. He has to stay square and just get vertical. This safety then would be married to that route there because it's inside of the corner. And then there's your post player. And he could be more patient as far as being square. He's giving too much ground as far as getting on top of these guys. But this linebacker here is working too far over. He needs to stay to this side here.